and welcome back to Japan by River Cruise. I am Bobby Judo calling in from southern Japan.
And I'm Ollie Horn calling in from southern United Kingdom.
We've got another fantastic show for you today. We're going to be talking about the latest in Japan-US relations. And as always, we've got your weekly River Cruise recommendation. Ollie?
Yes, this week I'm recommending a charming Rugby World Cup themed river cruise in Tokyo. I explain why I don't give a fuck.
I'm going to jump in on that as well. Plus, there are river cruises everywhere in the world, but are Japanese river cruises somehow culturally superior? The 4,000 Japanese people we surveyed all said yes. But first up, it's Soap Talk.
Bobby, why do we call it Soap Talk?
If you're just joining the show, we call it Soap Talk because Ollie's Japanese is shit.
And what if you're not just joining the show?
Then you're probably already aware that Ollie's Japanese is shit.
What do I say?
You say Soap Talk. You should be saying Seken Banashi, which means small talk. And you say Seken Banashi, which means Soap Talk.
Well, I guess we'll never know. Do I? I've got some soap talk.
Yeah, I understand that the Fringe was a mixed bag for you.
A mixed bag, a bag of what happens if you miss financial loss, heartbreak, and creative disrepair. Throw it all in a bag, and that bag happens to have a lot of chips in it as well. In fact, so the Fringe, for those that aren't aware, is like a 4-week long arts festival.
It's like
in
the
Scotland.
comedy mecca.
Yeah, and it's in a city which has loads of chip shops, and I discovered after day 15 that I had beaten medical science by eating chips for 14 consecutive days, and I wasn't sick.
Wow.
And then I got sick. So 14 days is the limit,
so
boys.
The record stands at 14.
Record says 14, and you almost have to pull a show, but it's embarrassing to explain that you got a show because of explosive diarrhea. So you just do it. Now, that's not what not what I'm here to talk about, Bobby. The chips are very prevalent in Edinburgh. I'm trying to think of.
So you were there doing your Japan show, your Pig in Japan show.
Yeah,
you were touring
Pig in Japan show. Which we are now, I'm afraid, obliged to call a critically acclaimed Pig in Japan show.
I saw it. It got a handful of very positive reviews.
Yeah, also got one bad one as well. And but we focus on the good ones. So good was I. So good, in fact, like many of the shows were selling out. I was having a great time. So pleased was I with the show that I decided to film it while in Edinburgh. Top tip, by the way, for any comedians that are thinking of doing a show and filming it. If you want to make sure that the show goes badly, if you want to make sure that everything that can goes wrong does go wrong, spend at least £500 on getting it filmed.
Wow.
Because, man, so basically I had this 60-seater venue and we sold it out, and there were 60 excited people ready to watch the show.
Yeah, I was following on Facebook and such. I mean, this was the show that you wanted to record, so you did everything to pack the house and make sure that people who wanted to see your show would come on this day so they could be a part of the taping and the audience.
Yeah, and it was great. I mean, I didn't sell out every day. I mean, the first day I sold out was the day when my mum was planning to come see me, and she didn't have a ticket, and they didn't let her in. I had to go downstairs and say, obviously she's coming in. Obviously, and so mum had the indignity of watching the show from the technical box. Basically, yeah. So lots of people turned up. Apparently, they turned away 25 people. It was like, oh man, it was super exciting. We had 4 cameras, HD, 4K, in fact, 2 of them. So make of that what you will. And the show has me playing clips, right? Showing some of the daft stuff.
Yeah, it's about your experiences as somebody working in media in Japan, in rural Japan. Right. So you have a lot of multimedia. You have a lot of like video clips and sound.
So, yeah. So you can't really do the show without it.
Right.
And so, anyway, the show starts with this clip, and for some reason, literally just as we were about to open the doors, the technician was like, "I'm getting a bit of a funny buzz from your laptop." But like, I was like, "Don't worry, let people in. We'll restart the computer." 5 minutes elapses, still no joy. But we always have backups, right? So there's a backup way of getting audio, which is going through the HDMI cable into where the projector's going. That projector has an audio output that goes into a thing called a DI box that goes through an XLR cable into the, so like, don't worry, we'll do that. That then didn't work, and it's like, we have another redundancy. We always use a Bluetooth. At this point, 10 minutes had elapsed, and I then had to go on stage, and I was like, "Hey guys, we're going to start the show real soon. Super excited that you're here for the record." Like building up this goodwill. The show's going to go so well, right? Like that's the way that these hero stories always work, isn't it? It always seems like they're not about to do it, then they do.
You pull it out at the last minute.
And it's great. And then 15 minutes elapses, and then we start doing things like, we'll try and run my show off the iPad. Plug that in, doesn't work. Try and run the show off my phone. I plug my phone into the projector. The first screen comes up, and it's just the Tinder icon, and everyone's like, "Open that." I'm like, "No, right, that's not happening either." Unplug that, and then 20 minutes elapses. I'm thinking, well, even if we get it fixed now, I can't do the hour show in 45 minutes,
right?
And so then I just have to sheepishly walk to the front of the stage. By this point, I wear a headset mic, by the way, and I was at the back dicking around on my computer trying to fix things, talking to the technician while also talking to the crowd.
On a hot mic. Very nice. Very nice.
Well, the technician was like, shall I take your microphone down? I went, nah, leave it on. Let's everyone can hear this. This is interesting. End up having to walk in front of everyone going, "Hey guys, I've got 2 bits of news for you. First bit of news, it's good news and bad news. The good news is the show's not that good anyway. The bad news is you're not going to get to see the show." Offered people refunds. Some people were like, fine. A lot of people said, "Well, we can't come to the show tomorrow. We wanted to see it today." I said, "Well, obviously fine, but I can't do it for you." And so faced with the prospect of refunding 60 people, I started to do other stand-up. So I just almost tricked them into just listening to me doing some stand-up. After 10 minutes, I went, "Well, you've all laughed now, so you're all only entitled to a partial refund." And I just kept going, and I just did. And I ended up, because some people wanted me to not spoil the show.
Right.
Because they were going to come out the next day. I did 45 minutes of other stand-up that I just wasn't in the show. Wow. I was starting routines that I didn't even know how they ended. Anyway, in the end, what happened was a lot of people came back the next day, and I was like, "Look, the way that the show works is if you have a ticket, you've bought a ticket, but if there's any spare space, you can come in and just pay the money at the end or pay what you want at the end."
Right.
And I said, some people here will have tickets from yesterday. That's cool. Some people won't have a ticket. You can pay what you want. Some people I owe money to. So if you want to pay for the show, please put the money in the bucket. If you want a refund, please take the money out of the bucket, and hopefully we'll find some kind of equilibrium. Turns out everyone was really nice about it. But the show's not filmed. I'm filming the show. That was going to be the backup filming. The actual filming is happening in Berlin on the 6th of September, which is this coming Thursday, which means by the time we've released this, I will have already filmed it. So hopefully by next week's show, you'll hear the disaster that was as well.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I don't know. I feel like every time I've seen you live, I've seen a good show. And every time I hear you talk about a show that I wasn't at, it seems like it was a disaster. And one of the
which is funny. Every time I hear one of your stories, it always sounds like you're doing fantastically. But whenever I see...
I smash it every time.
Do you have any posts?
What's that?
Do we have any post?
Oh, yeah, actually, we do. We have one message. It says, "I'm really enjoying the show, but I'm getting mixed messages from you fellas about the guidelines of this email form. If your incoming mail is any indication, you're doing really well with the people named Brian in Fukuoka demographic. Any idea how you're doing with the larger demographics, or do you have to upgrade to a premium plan to reach those groups?"
Is this from Brian?
This is from a different Brian. So we do. We have all the mail we've ever received have both been from 2 different Brians in Fukuoka. So yes, we are killing it in the Brian and Fukuoka demographic. I'm pretty sure in that demographic our listenership is at 100%.
I don't agree. I'm sure there's another Brian in Fukuoka that we need to find. So I'm going to make it my mission to go on Facebook, find Brian's in Fukuoka. Brian seems like the kind of guy that age 40 is still hanging around the international mixer parties, holding a little plate of nuts.
Okay. So you have just insulted and alienated the 2 Brians who do listen, because
They're old. Those. Is that them? I don't know them.
We support your choice of lifestyle, Brian's.
Well, no. For me, those Brians are old news.
And
I'm looking. Look at the new generation of Brians.
You're looking at the Brians of the future. But let's just clear up the mixed messages about the email form on our website at japanbyrivercruise.com. We have read every single message we've ever received on air, and we'll continue to do so. But seriously,
stop emailing us.
Not encouraged. All right.
We're overwhelmed.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and get into the news.
Bobby Judo, what is the news this week?
So we're going to talk a little bit about the recent U.S.-Japan relations, because there have been, over the last 3 weeks or so, there have been a handful of developments that I've found very, very interesting. First, Japan...
By interesting, do you mean terrifying?
No, actually, surprisingly, this is one of the few shows where we're not going to talk about something terrifying.
You just wait.
We'll get it there. We'll figure out a way to get it there.
Don't worry.
So Japan issued a travel advisory for the U.S. because of all the shootings.
Brilliant. So there we go.
They weren't the only country to issue a travel advisory, but they were one of a couple of countries who issued a travel advisory. Be on alert as you travel for the possibility of being involved in a shooting incident.
Which does seem like I always find the travel warnings bizarre anyway.
Yeah,
right?
Like what?
Well, because the British government does the same thing, right? Countries around the world, a travel warning. Is it basically them saying we're not going to provide you consular assistance because we warned you, or like they say stuff like only go if the travel's essential? It's like, well, I want to go. Right? Like, well, how do you? I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure the consul is still gonna back you up if you get into trouble, but I mean, at some point, you kind of have to say, okay, if you're going to this country, you face the risk of being eaten by a lion, or infection from Zika virus, or
a lion,
or
yeah, well,
in the U.S., somebody might mistake you for a lion and shoot you. But
so this is basically Japan saying don't go to all of the US.
This is the same reason I basically raised my kids in Japan. It's because you can't walk around in the US and have a reasonable expectation of not being shot. So if you're traveling there, you should be aware of that. And I'm sure there's not many people that it's deterring.
Well, I think you've got to do something to get shot. I still basically, obviously we hear about the mass shootings, right? But most people are shocked because people want to shoot them, right? Like the mass shootings, don't they form part of a smaller subset of all the other shootings?
Well, it depends on what you define. I think the definition of a mass shooting is an incident in which 3 or more people are shot. And there's at least one a day in the U.S. And I'm sure most of them are somebody who knows somebody who's upset, or they have a reason and they go to a specific place to shoot specific people, or
right.
Gun violence breaks out between 2 people and multiple people get shot. But I mean, the numbers for gun violence in America are
just don't get caught up in that. When I was in the US, I was just not getting caught up in it.
Okay.
That's the best travel advice. Don't get caught up in it.
I'm assuming that this is tongue-in-cheek advice from you, because the list of places where you can go and get shot are staggering. It's like shopping mall, church,
don't go there,
garlic festival, elementary school.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
Man, my travel advice is go to America, spend 1 week in Disneyland, Florida, spend 1 week in the other Disneyland, and go back home again. Okay. You will not get shot.
I think we might have to edit this before we put it up, because the likelihood that someone's going to get shot at Disneyland before we get to post this are pretty good.
Do you reckon? I suppose that Lion King ride has riled a few people. Right. So what's Trump?
So Trump's immediate reaction was, if you're going to tell people that it's not safe to come if you're going to tell people that it's not safe to visit America, Japan, we're going to reciprocate. He said they'll Yeah.
Well, you just
said,
wait. We'll.
So no, I mean, because there's specifics here, and the specifics are that he said that the U.S. will take unspecified actions against countries that issue the warnings. He hinted that allies such as Japan could be the target of these reciprocal actions, even though it wasn't clear what actions he could take in response.
I think unspecified actions is a journalist being incredibly kind in reporting what Trump didn't say at all.
Yeah. He had no
They obviously
idea,
asked the question,
right?
what are you going to do? And he would have just said some guff. I mean, it's an interesting response, isn't it? The accusation from an ally that your country isn't safe, and then going, maybe we should make it safer.
Well, this is what the Consulate General of Japan in Detroit said in a statement when they released the travel advisory. It said, heeding to the possibility that shooting incidents could happen anywhere in the U.S., which is a gun society, please continue to stay alert as a precautionary measure. And in Japanese, that's a direct translation of the Japanese, is Ju Shakai, which is literally gun society.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that I definitely know Japanese people that have avoided going to America because they now think it's scary.
Well,
like I definitely know. I can think of one individual that chose Australia over America, and may she rest in peace after that shark injury.
The idea that the United States is a gun society is a long-standing one here in Japan. They think that every individual in America owns a gun, when in reality it's only like 1 out of 3, which is still crazy. But yeah, I've had people say, I want to go to the U.S., but I don't want to get shot. So it does deter some Japanese people. It doesn't deter the Japanese people who were already inclined to go to America. I don't know if you ever came across this, but there's like a definite separation between Japanese people who are willing to go to foreign countries and then Japanese people who are just fine to stay home. And the ones who are fine to stay home will see this and go, yeah, buddy, it's as I thought. It's not safe. That's what I thought anyway, so I'm not going to go. And the ones who are inclined to go, maybe a handful of them will be deterred, but most of them want to go anyway. I mean, I still get asked all the time, by people who want to do work study in the U.S. because they don't know that we don't have a work study visa for foreigners. People who want to do study abroad in the U.S. or people who want to find a way to go and live in the States. They say, I want to go, but where's the safest place that I can live if I go to America? And I tell them the truth. The safest place to live in America is inside of a white person, a man, a white man, if possible. That's what I do when I'm there. I find it very convenient. Never had a problem.
I also think some good advice, right, is to not be scared of guns. Because did I tell you about when I went to? So I went to LA, and place where I was going to stay fell through, and I found this Airbnb last minute, and it was absolutely rough. It was easily the roughest place I've ever stayed in my life. It was like dorm rooms. I thought I would be sharing with one other person. It turns out they'd managed to squeeze eight beds. No, more than that, because it was 6 double beds, so 12 bunk beds into a room that on the Airbnb picture showed one single bed. And like obviously just they'd incrementally just added more and more beds. And it was, I felt terrible there because the whole place just stunk, and it was people that obviously were really out of their luck. And I had the fortune of only being there for a week. There were some people that were living there for months on end.
Yeah. And
overall, I left feeling quite sad actually that a lot of people were. I mean, there was a lot of really really weird people. There was a lot of black and ethnic minorities who were clearly living there full time. There was a couple of
who
failed
you clearly
actors.
Can't stand.
Well, do you know what? Actually, that we got. Well, I got on with a few of them. One I didn't get on with because they left their washing in the dryer, right? And I wanted to use it, and I waited for 2 hours and they didn't pick it up. So I took their washing out the dryer and I placed it on top of the dryer in the basket, which is a very reasonable thing to do. And they came storming in and they said, "Did you move my laundry?" I said, "Yeah, I took it out of the dryer and I put it in that basket." He said, "I'm a member of a gang. That's how people get shot." And I said, "I don't think your gang cares about your laundry." And that diffused the situation. He walked away. I think he was I think that's right. I think if he messages gang going, guys, you never guess what, but my smalls have been moved, they would go, all right, well, move them back or don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That reminds me that one of the guys there was he claimed he was a movie director and he was on the cusp of a big win, and he showed me his phone. He said, look, these are some of my awards. But he showed me his pictures, and as he handed me his phone, like, he accidentally swiped the screen, and the picture before the one he wanted to show me was a zoomed-in picture of a young female worker in Best Buy, who he'd obviously just taken a candid picture of. And so I didn't really want to tell him that's what I'd seen. So I just was looking at this very, very grainy picture of this. I mean, I wouldn't even say remarkably attractive, just a woman working in Best Buy that he'd zoomed in, taken a candid picture of, and I just had to look at it, pretend it was a trophy or something, because I didn't know what he was showing me, but he said, this is one of my previous, and I went, yeah, no, really nice. Yep, really nice. Just had little lingering look there on a grainy Best Buy employee, and then turned the phone off and handed it back to him. I don't know what he was trying to show me.
Very cool. So we have discussed how Japan considers the U.S. unsafe because it's a gun society. We managed to get in a story from Ollie with really unnecessary details about people's ethnicities, and we got to hear you give your opinion on a woman's appearance. So with that, now let's go ahead and get back into the news, because there's been some more developments in recent U.S.-Japan relations. Namely, President Trump asked Japan to buy U.S. agricultural products because, as you know, there's this whole big trade war going on with China, and China has stopped buying U.S. Agricultural products. So the U.S. has,
including rice,
these huge surpluses of rice, soybeans, and corn that they need to figure out something to do with. And so they're looking at a $7 billion trade deal, which actually they just closed the end of last month. But Japan is taking on soybeans, wheat, and corn from the U.S. And what I found really, really funny about this is when they were in talks to get Japan to buy U.S. soybeans, the news reported over here that the Japanese government would consider its response and didn't know exactly how to deal with this request from Trump. And one proposal floated was to buy the U.S. soybeans and then use them as food support for African countries. Because Japan is like, U.S. soybeans, we got our own, thanks.
We're not. That's such a beautifully Japanese response.
Oh, it's so diplomatic. We're
humbly receiving a gift and then just never opening the box or re-gifting it as soon as you can.
We're not gonna eat that shit, but people who don't have any food, we'll send it on their way.
What are soybeans used for? Soy sauce?
Yeah, they used to make soy sauce. They used to make tofu, soy milk, miso. They used to make basically everything in Japan.
Miso comes from soybeans, does it?
Yeah, fermented soybeans.
Right. I mean, soybeans, by the sounds of things, are pretty stinky.
If you ferment them, yeah.
How can you have bad ones?
I mean, natto goes... have you ever had tofu in the West?
Yeah.
Have you ever had it in Japan?
Well, yeah, of course.
Is it not terrible in the West and great here?
I think you've been brainwashed, my friend.
Well, I mean, I haven't had tofu in the U.S. since 2004 or 5, but I remember very clearly like buying U.S. soybean tofu in the States, and it being awful.
Well, isn't tofu a lot about how it's prepared anyway? That like you can make tofu nice.
Well, but I mean,
nice dish.
I think this is what everybody in the West says. Everybody in the West says tofu has no flavor and it can be hard and kind of like the consistency isn't pleasant. It's bean curd.
Yeah.
And so what you do to it in cooking can make it taste good. And they say, oh, you just haven't had it prepared properly. But in Japan, one of the most popular dishes to buy at an izakaya, at like a gastropub, it's
just tofu.
A chilled block of tofu with a little bit of soy sauce and ginger or scallions on, and it's really got the flavor of the soybeans, and it tastes fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're probably right. my overriding thought about all this is we're going to end up getting this because Britain is so over a barrel at the moment with the EU,
right?
That the moment we crash out without a deal, the first thing that's happening is we're going to the US saying, "Please, can we have a trade deal?" And we're going to be getting like Japan's sloppy seconds. There's all this tofu which is in warehouses that hasn't been sold. The moment that's signed, there's going to be a huge influx of tofu on British supermarket shelves that no one's going to have any clue what to do with.
And how is Boris Johnson going to sell this as a win?
He's going to go, patriotic tofu. I can't even. What is that? What is there anything you could do with tofu that's with like British food? Could you like introduce tofu to the English breakfast? Basically, the one thing that tofu's got going for it, which means that it will fit in with the rest of British food, is beige. Like all of our food's beige. I can't think of. What are your tofu recipes? If you get given tofu, obviously that's basically your way of.
Well, there's mabo tofu, which is the Chinese style of preparing it with minced meat and spice. There's chilled tofu with kimchi is very, very good. You can make a tofu hamburger, which is like a hamburger steak with very minimal minced meat and just crushed up tofu, and then bind it together with some egg and some breadcrumbs. But British cuisine, I mean, you can boil it and eat it with ketchup. Should be fine.